Good morning, Sonder family. Welcome to our Sunday morning weekly setup. My name is Bailey Grady, and I will be your facilitator today. I almost said this evening because I did this yesterday as well. I saw lots of familiar names in the chat. Welcome back, everyone. So good to see you and have you here with us today. I think I may also see some newer names in the chat. Maybe this is your first social, or maybe you're just starting to come to socials, or you're coming to one after not being after not being at one for a while. So if that's you, welcome to you as well. You have a great group of folks here with you today. We'll be going through some different pages and things in our journal, including getting set up for our week ahead. And I'll kind of be going through showing different examples and providing some tips and tricks up on the screen. But you have a wealth of knowledge and perspectives and ideas here in this chat with you. There's lots of long-term Silk and Sonder users here in the chat, long-term Sonder social attendees. And while I am excited to show you what I have to share, please do not be afraid to ask in the chat for people's opinions, their ideas, because they are full of them. And speaking of the chat, do make sure that you have that little blue box near where you type set to everyone. A lot of the times it will default to host and panelist, and if it does that, not everyone will be able to see what you have to say. Host and panelist only goes to myself and my wonderful co-facilitator, Katie. Katie is here with us and she will be hanging out in the chat. So she will also be there to provide tips and tricks and help any way that she can. So if you have it set host and panelist only, she and I will be able to see what you're saying. But if you want to share with the group, make sure that you have that set to everyone. As we go through, and I am sharing those examples and things up on the screen, if there is anything that you want to refer back to, we will share a link at the end where you can find the recording of this social. It'll take a few days before it's up on YouTube, but they will get it up on YouTube, so you can go back and rewatch these socials if you ever have the need, or if you have to leave early or show up late, anything like that. Excuse me. But also, if you want to grab any like photos or screenshots as we move through, please feel free to do that. And likewise, at the end, once you get your journal set up, if you feel comfortable taking pictures of what you've done with your time, we would also love to see those if you feel comfortable sharing. Excuse me. As most of you have said, we have a wintry system coming through, and while I don't think we're expected to get any snow here in Hendersonville, Tennessee, it definitely has dropped the temperature by about 20 degrees overnight. So I think my sinuses are unhappy with this change. So you'll have to forgive me for the sniffles today. But we will go ahead and dive into our community guidelines here. So during our time together, and really always, I think these are kind of good rules to live by for the most part, really. Please be kind and courteous to yourself and to others. No promotions or spam, please. We're going to respect everyone's privacy here in our Sonder Social. And of course, no hate speech or bullying. And if you would limit repetitive product and accessory questions, like we don't mind some chatter around like, what's your favorite stickers or pins or things like that. Obviously, we all like to use those in our journals, but we also want you to be able to kind of get through the task at hand. And then if there's anything that myself or Katie can't answer for you, if you have a question that we can't help with, like we can't see anything with like subscriptions or shipping info or anything like that, we'll direct you over to the team at headquarters at hello@silkandsonder.com. They are like a Monday through Friday team, and they're like small but mighty, so give them a day or two to get back to you if you have anything that needs their help. And then finally, Sonder Socials are a tool to help elevate your emotional health through the power of community, but you are responsible for your own emotions, well-being, and decisions. So said another way, please take what you need from this time. If you need to just hang out in the chat and then kind of put pen to paper in your journal later, like maybe you just want to get a list of like ideas, maybe you're still waiting on your journal and you're just kind of going to jot down things so that that way when your journal comes, you'll be ready. That is totally fine. Or maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you're like, like it's early for me. I'm not ready to be social. I just want to hang out, just me and my music and my journal and just focus in on that. that is totally fine as well. You can also do a mixture of both. You can turn down the music if it doesn't speak to you, turn down my voice if it doesn't speak to you, whatever it is that you need from this time here. And if there's anything that as we go through starts to bring up some, more complex emotions, it's not necessarily a bad thing. We have a lot of people that have had many aha moments in a Sonder Social, and we love that. But sometimes emotions and things bubble up unexpectedly, or it's in a topic or in an area that we're not really ready to like unpack. And just because those are bubbling up today in the social does not mean that um, you have to tackle it today. So if that happens to you, take a breath, do something else, go to your coloring page, hang out in the chat, jam out to the music, whatever it is that you need to do. And before you know, we will kind of move on to the next thing. I'm seeing some folks saying maybe they're having issues with volume. Let me try something. I don't know if this will fix it or not. Okay. Is that any better for anybody that's having trouble with volume by chance? You can tell me yes in the chat if that's the case. If not, I would just check your volume settings because that's kind of how I usually have it. So I'm not sure why else it would be quiet. But anywho, so today, we are going to go through our prosperity mind map. So, for those of you that may be new to socials or new to our weekly socials, so we have a set of prompts that we call our mind map, and these will be prompts that are strictly related to our theme of the month. And this exercise is unique to the weekly socials specifically. So you do have to either attend a weekly social or watch a playback of a weekly social in order to get these. So if you would like to participate in that today, you're just going to do it on a blank page in your journal. It's not going to be pre-printed anywhere. Then we'll do our rosebud thorn exercise to kind of reflect on last week before we move into our weekly setup for the week ahead. So we're gonna go ahead and get started with that prosperity mind map. And in order to do so, we have to kind of talk about our new theme, which is prosperity. So prosperity is one of those themes that I think the mind map prompt actually kind of says it well. So I'm gonna bounce back and forth a little bit here. So the mind map prompt opener here says like the word prosperity often conjures images of wealth and material success. However, true prosperity encompasses a much richer tapestry of the human experience. And then our prompts are going to invite us to delve deeper into our own understanding of prosperity each week. And so, really, our theme and our question today is, what does the word prosperity mean to you? Is it primarily about financial wealth, or does it encompass other aspects of life as well? So for me, I decided to kind of look at prosperity through a lens of self-care. And so this is kind of a quick, I asked Google, right? Like totally honest, transparent here. Like I just asked Google, I said, hey, if I want to look at prosperity through the lens of self-care, what does that look like? And this is kind of what it came up for me, right? Technology can be our own worst enemy, but it also can be a super huge help. So if you ever want to look at something from like a specific standpoint, don't be afraid to Google it, right? So what Google spit out for me is prosperity is used as a theme for self-care. It refers to the idea of actively cultivating a state of abundance and well-being in all aspects of your life, including physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health by prioritizing self-care practices that nurture your overall flourishing and happiness. Essentially, viewing self-care as a means to achieve a thriving and fulfilling life across all dimensions. So this is kind of the lens that I'm using for prosperity. So when I got our first mind map prompt here of what does the word prosperity mean to you, that's the first thing that I sort of kicked off with, was that definition of looking at it through that lens of that like self-care element. And then when I was reading through that, I realized I was like, this actually connects really well into my word of the year, because my word of the year is serenity. Especially that last line about self-care equals thriving and fulfilling life across all dimensions. Because with that word serenity, my goal is to cultivate serenity through clarity, alignment, manifestation, and actualization. And so it kind of goes hand in hand. It's sort of saying like, hey, take care of all the little areas in your life, right? Like find your clarity, do things that are in alignment with those clear goals, make sure you're investing time in the right places, and then you're going to end up having that serenity in your life or having that prosperity in your life. But I also do something a little bit different with my word of the year. I use a fictional character to kind of ground in my word. So it helps me as the year goes on because when I start off the year and it's just a word, I have a very clear vision in like January of what I have in mind for that and why I picked that word and what I want the rest of the year to look like. But 365 days, sometimes it feels like it goes by in blink of an eye, but it is a long period of time. And so as the year goes on, sometimes I tend to lose sight of what my vision was for that word of the year. And so I like to tie mine into a fictional character and kind of what that word represents to them and their journey so that I can be more grounded in it as the year goes on. Because if I have more of an idea of what it looks like, it's easier for me to like tie into that thing. And I had to share with all of you. So I use the personalized coaching platform, as many of you know. And I feel like this is sort of like it's a fun, cool thing that I do, but it is like it's a little different, right? It's a little unique to like tie your word into a fictional character. So I decided to ask Jenny, like, hey, this is what I'm doing, and Moana is actually the character that I've chosen for Serenity. What do you think about that? And she came up with all of these awesome things here of why Moana is a great pick for Serenity. And I wanted to, one, show you all just how cool the coaching platform is and how well they really get to know you. But also, all of these things I thought really did tie in well with like prosperity, and especially through that lens of looking at it from all areas and spaces in your life, because she gave me a really holistic, encompassing view of what that could look like. And then over on the right-hand side, there's all kinds of other potential areas for you to explore with prosperity. So of course, financial prosperity is and can be a part of this theme. But we also have health, relationships, spirituality, community, and personal growth. So with all that said, I'm going to hop back and forth between these slides for you. Please share with us what is bubbling up for you when you think about what the word prosperity means to you and what areas of life you want to apply that theme to as you go through. And then we'll move on to our next activity together. Okay. Thank you all for taking some time to kind of think about this prompt. If you're still working on it, no worries. You can continue to kind of work on it as you find time here in the social, or you can even take a few minutes after. I know that we have a lot of folks that like to tell their friends and family that the social is actually like an hour and 15 minutes or an hour and 30 minutes. And then they just kind of take that time for themselves at the end to kind of wrap up and spend some time in their journal because they've already carved out that initial time. So, what's another 30 minutes or so. And I saw that Katie had shared in the chat the link to take the Silk and Sonder, like, what is your word of the year quiz? And I will say that was helpful for me. The word that it gave me was clarity, which I ultimately didn't end up choosing, but it is a part of how I plan to create serenity, which is my word. So I definitely recommend taking that quiz if you haven't, because even if that word that comes up doesn't resonate with you, it might spark something else or like go along with a word that you do end up deciding to have. It's also fine if you don't pick a word of the year. It's become kind of like a popular thing, and like I started doing it, I think in 2018 is the first time I did it, and I've really enjoyed it. But you certainly don't have to just because other people are doing it. Do whatever feels right for you. We are now going to hop on over to page 30 in our journals for our rosebud thorn exercise. So this is kind of looking back on the last 7 days with a little bit of balance, kind of thinking about what's happened right before we move into our weekly planning for the next 7 days ahead. It's a good way to kind of like say, okay, thank you week, you have come to an end, before saying, okay, I'm getting ready for this next week ahead. So thinking about the next or the past 7 days rather, and focusing in on what was a rose. What is something that went well? Maybe something that made you smile, that was like a bright spot in your week. Maybe it was like a small win. Sometimes the win is that you made it through the week. That absolutely counts as a rose on some weeks for myself, and I know that some of you feel the same. And then you're going to think about a bud, something that, maybe could bloom, like something you're looking forward to or gives you hope or motivation. It also could be like something new on the horizon that maybe you're excited about, or maybe a little nervous, maybe both. And then a thorn is something that didn't go well, maybe something that you could use some support with, the opposite of your rose, if you will. So I always like to do these in reverse. So for my thorn, I just have had like a general lack of motivation and low energy the last week or so, and that's not really uncommon for me this time of the year. I have said more times than I I could probably count in the last week or so, like, oh, I'll do that when the sun returns. When the sun returns, that will be a project for me. I'll work on that when the sun comes back. And really what I mean is when springtime comes, right? Like when the earth also decides to return and things start to bloom and all of that happens is also when I get my energy back. I am like a little house plant powered by the sun, and these long, dark, cold days are not doing it for me in my battery meter. But that's okay. I know now that that's just normal for me, and so I'm kind of living in a season where I accept that and I'm allowing myself to rest and doing the best that I can, but there are definitely still days where it's really frustrating. So that's my thorn. My bud is that I have a new little cousin. So my cousin, so my first cousin, and his wife had a baby. So this will be my second cousin. I'm an only child, so my cousins are maybe a little bit more closer or important to me than other folks that I know just because they have siblings and I don't. So I'm very excited for them, but he came 5 weeks early. He actually came on New Year's Day, which is very exciting, but it was 5 weeks early. He still weighed 7 pounds even at 5 weeks, so there's no telling what would have happened if she had gone full term. Um, but he has had to go to the NICU for a little while and he's doing good, and she's had some complications too, so she's still in the hospital. So looking forward to them coming home, being happy, and then hopefully getting to go and meet him at some point. And then my rose is that my best friend's birthday is actually on New Year's Eve. She was born on New Year's Eve, and it's the best thing ever because I like to stay in on New Year's Eve. I very much am like, hey, let's please sit on the couch and not go anywhere and just hang out and not get out in the crazy, because especially in Nashville, New Year's Eve can get kind of wild. And so I love that she has the same vibe and that her birthday's on New Year's, because I can kind of trump anybody else's New Year's plans and be like, oh, sorry, it's my friend's birthday, so I'm gonna have to hang out with her. And then we just hang out on the couch and stay cozy. but she texted myself and her other friend, and she said, "Hey, it is my birthday, and so I'm feeling fancy. So I'm probably gonna get fancy, but you guys don't have to be fancy. Do whatever you want to do. Come in your sweatpants, whatever, no pressure." And we both decided, like, no, you know what? Let's do it. Let's play dress up. Let's get fancy and sit around on the couch and not go anywhere. So that's exactly what we did, and it was so much fun. And so I have a picture of the three of us up there, and it was great. We sat around in gowns and sparkly pants on the couch and didn't go anywhere, and it was the best thing. We don't get a lot of opportunities as adults to like play dress up without there being some other kind of obligation that goes along with it, right? A fancy dinner or an event or whatever the case may be. So it was really fun to just like dress up and go nowhere. So I highly recommend it for the next time that you're hanging out with your friends. So with all that said, I will go ahead and put on some music for you all. Please share in the chat what your roses, buds, and thorns are. We would love to kind of cheer you on for those roses and provide some encouragement for those thorns. This is probably one of my favorite activities that we do in the weekly setup because one of the best things about coming to Sonder Socials is getting to spend time with your community. And I think that this exercise in particular really gives a clear little peek into each other's lives and what's going on and kind of, the similarities and differences that we have. So if you feel comfortable sharing, we would love to see it. Thank you all for reflecting on this exercise. And I know the chat is moving really fast. So if that is starting to kind of put pressure on you in any way, don't let it put pressure on you. You can scroll up to kind of make it stop, but I know we have a lot of messages flowing in quickly. Just focus in on what you need. And if that means that you need to let the chat go for a bit and just focus in on your journal, do that. Or if it means that you are really excited about the chat and you want to spend time in that and then just set up your journal afterwards. Whatever you need, again, take that time as this is for you. I saw we have lots of folks kind of going through similar things and like struggles, health things, family dynamic stuff, and also like lots of exciting things on the horizon, new plans for the year, travel, new goals are already starting to go well for some of you. So thank you all so much for sharing. We are now going to get into our main event, which is our weekly setup. And this is going to be on pages 32 and 33 in our journals today. So this is my whole weekly spread, but we're going to go through this kind of section by section. So we're going to start on page 32 with the section titled How I Want to Feel. Now, last year, my word of the year was embrace. And in order to kind of keep that front of mind throughout the year, I actually changed the How I Want to Feel section to This Week I Want to Embrace. And I really enjoyed doing that. So I'm going to do that same thing with my new word of the year, serenity, and kind of figure out different ways to call in serenity into my life for the week. So for this week, I said I want to create serenity by focusing on new routines. But picking a feeling can be a very powerful grounding tool and kind of be a great way to establish your mindset before you start planning out all the little things for your week. So there are some different feelings listed there in that little word cloud for some inspiration. And then we also have all of these amazing examples from Sonder Club that people have posted and shared from their journals. And you can see from these examples that like there is no right or wrong way to do this. And in general, I want you to know that that is exactly how your journal should work. There is no right or wrong way. The only rule that we have for your journal is that you make it work for you. So you can see that it doesn't have to be a single word. It can be multiple words. It could be a definition, a quote that really speaks to you, stickers, imagery. Again, whatever makes you say, yes, this is the feeling that I want. This is what I want to call in. Maybe it's a color, right? Like maybe you're like, I want to feel the way that like that periwinkle blue makes me feel when I see it. And so you're just going to color it periwinkle blue. If that is going to elicit the feeling that you want as you go through the week, go for it. So I'll put on a quick song for you to think about this. Share in the chat how you want to feel or how you're using this section. Okay, thank you all for sharing. And if you haven't landed on a word yet, that's okay too. Sometimes this ends up being the last box that I fill in because until I can wrap my head around everything else I have going on for the week, I can't really figure out how I want to feel about it. So we are going to try to do just that now by hopping into our middle sections here in the journal with the sections titled Weekly To-Dos and Weekly Major 3 Goals. Now, as I've mentioned, I use the personalized coaching platform, and one of the ways that I use that is I use it in my setup each week to get me ready. It's like my personal sidekick, and it just makes my life so much easier. I used to use the major three goals section as intended. I would write out like three things to kind of focus on or try to, get done for the week. And sometimes I would do them, but it didn't really like motivate me. Like having those three things listed there didn't hone my focus in on those three things the way that it should. So I was kind of just going through the motion, if you will, because it was there in the journal. And then once I started getting the coaching each week, because I get mine weekly, it comes with three affirmations. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to try this in this section and just see what happens. And I found that like I really like it. And what I do instead is I list the three affirmations. And then over on my to do side, I do come up with three to dos, but they're kind of related to the affirmations. So it feels less like, oh, here are the three tasks I need to get done, and more like, okay, these are the three affirmations I have this week. How am I going to support the feelings that those elicit? So, for example, one of mine affirmations is I honor my wisdom and resilience, allowing myself to explore new beginnings with courage. And so, the way I'm going to support that is to focus on one thing at a time and know that this is progress. Try not to get stuck in the fact that, oh, I'm not doing enough or I'm not moving fast enough or whatever the case may be, because one step at a time is absolutely the way to just continue to move forward and explore those new things. So that's how I use mine. And then any appointments or anything I have for the week, I also list in my to-dos. But next week is pretty chill for me, which is nice. So here are some examples of how other folks have decided to kind of blend these sections together. I really like this concept and idea of like picking like kind of three areas of focus and then picking kind of three to-dos to support that thing. And I love that those to-dos are in a bingo format for some of these because it just makes it look less like a to-do list and a little bit more like fun. And so if that speaks to you, maybe try that out. See how it goes. But you may be more of a nope, I need my task, I need my list kind of oriented person, and that is okay too. Like I said before, the only rule with this journal is that you make it work for you. So you can see where other folks have decided to do a more traditional to-do list, just writing down those things that they need to focus on and get done. We also have some folks that like to do a to-da list instead of a to-do list. And so essentially it's the opposite of a to-do. So instead of writing out all the things you need to get done, you write down things as you do them. And then at the end of the week, you have this whole list of all these things that you got done, and you get to be like, ha, ta-da, look what I did. But I am going to borrow Katie's famous saying that I love so much, which is it doesn't matter if it's to do or to da as long as it gets to done. I think that that's so fun. If you have a lot going on, especially like I know a lot of you are going back to work next week for the first time in a little bit with the holiday season, or at the very least, maybe you're getting back to whatever your normal routine is, and you're feeling a little overwhelmed about all the things that you said, yeah, that can wait till next year. You might want to look at that Eisenhower decision matrix in the top left corner and kind of figure out what's really urgent, what's not, what's important, what can I delegate to a future week or other people or whatever the case may be. And then if you're feeling like your to-do list doesn't look overwhelming, you're just concerned about getting it done, you may want to try that Pomodoro technique in the top of the screen there, that little pink graphic where you set a timer, commit to working on the task for that amount of time, and then when the timer goes off, you can kind of decide if you want to keep working on it or if you're done for the day. You also do not have to be task oriented. You can look more towards a need, want, hope list or a to be list and call in that state of being, maybe tying into how you want to feel, right? And kind of keeping that theme throughout your week with your task and things that you're focusing on. We love a bingo here at Silk and Sonder. So, of course, like we saw in some of those other examples, you can try to transform your to dos into a bingo. If you have something fun going on this week, like I know today is my friend Emily's birthday. So if she was here, I would maybe be suggesting that she try a birthday bingo for herself this week to kind of lean into that celebration. I also like the examples at the bottom where folks have decided to embrace and release different things for the week. And in addition to their do's, they also have some don'ts. But also, anything that elicits positivity for you is doing something. And so if this space isn't speaking to you, there's nothing you feel called to, and in fact, it's starting to like stress you out thinking about filling this out, don't fill it out. Take it one step at a time, come back to it later. You can always put doodles or stickers or a quote that you like here, anything that will make you smile, because again, if it brings any kind of small spark of joy, that is still doing something for you. I do like these examples for the major weekly 3 where people are focusing in on specific areas, especially the one in the bottom, where they have like the meditate often and then why. It helps with physical anxiety and I sleep better. So listing out that why with that goal, that can be really helpful for kind of like grounding in and making sure that you stick with that throughout the week. And again, it's okay to skip things. It's okay to just put stickers or to change this section completely. Maybe you're not going back to work just yet. Maybe you have a little bit of free time, or maybe you want to try to think about what this new routine looks like, but for 2025, right? Like you're getting ready to move into whatever your normal routine is. But it is a new year. And so maybe you have new goals and you want to think about how you're going to tackle those or move into them with that feeling that you established. So maybe this needs to look like a brainstorming session space, or it needs to look like working on one thing at a time, right? You don't have to put 3 things just because it says 3. You can focus on one single thing for the week. So that was a lot of examples. I will go back through all of these different slides for you while I put on some music for you to work. Let us know in the chat if you're having any aha moments or figuring out ways that you think this will work best for you. And then we'll move into our next section. All right, we're going to hop down to the bottom part of this page into the habits and activities section, or as some of you like to call them, the habities section. This is another thing that like I kind of have tried some different things out in the past, and I will say that when I was building a new sleep routine for myself, this worked really well as a space for like building out that routine, making sure I was following my steps, that sort of thing. I also know that a lot of folks, when they're first getting started, will list other areas of their journal here in this section, like checking in with their intentions to reground themselves, making sure that they're doing their mood tracker or their habit tracker or whatever the case may be. But this can also be a really good place to kind of stretch goals that are going really well. Like maybe on the habit tracker, you are trying to hit like 3,000 steps a day and you're doing awesome with that. You're rocking it. So maybe 3 times this week, you want to see if maybe you could do like 5,000 steps a day 3 times and see if that feels more comfortable now that you're hitting that smaller goal. Because maybe next month on your monthly habit tracker, you want to increase it to that 5K step goal. Likewise, if you have a goal you're struggling with, like maybe you said you were going to drink 100 ounces of water today and it's just not happening, maybe this week you want to focus on these weekly habits instead and kind of make that a more achievable goal of like 50 ounces and making sure you can get halfway there. And then after you get back into a groove and a rhythm, maybe you can go back to that larger goal for yourself. But for me, I do have anxiety, and the personalized coaching does provide me with breath work each week. And breathing and taking time to pause and like spend that time with the brain body connection is really important for me. So I always list that here for myself now, to put it front of mind to make sure I don't forget, because I am also one of those people that if I don't write it down and I don't see it, I'll forget it. Here are some other examples of how you can use this section. Like I was mentioning, you could decide to set a specific goal for something. Maybe you want to do it 3 times this week, or maybe you just want to track as it comes up and there's no additional goal needed. You do not have to fill in every line that's here. You might have one thing that is different from your normal habits that you want to track here this week. And that is fine too. You also could use this as a place where you could track things you want to stop doing. Like I know one time I tried to stop biting my nails this way, and it actually did work pretty well. But you can also use this as a check-in section. And I like the person who decided to focus more on the activity side of this. They clearly did this kind of during like one of the holiday weeks. So they kind of leaned into those holiday activities to focus on for the week. And even though the holidays are for many of us behind us now, we still have a whole season ahead of us. Winter solstice was really just a couple weeks ago. So we are just now in the beginning of winter and we're fully in that winter season. So if you have winter activities that you like to do, or maybe there are like certain wintry like flavors and treats, or like your favorite coffees that your local coffee shops put out for the winter, that you want to lean into, like maybe you might focus in on that this week for your activities and things. So I'll hop between these examples for all of you. Please share in the chat how you're deciding to use this, and then we'll move into our next section. Okay, we are going to flip our page over to page 33 now, starting with the section titled Meal Plan. Now, this section gets repurposed a lot, not because having a meal plan or a meal tracker isn't beneficial, because it absolutely can be depending on what your goals are, but it just takes up a lot of real estate in your journal, and the layout is so great for so many things, that it's an area that a lot of folks have decided to kind of play around with a little bit more. So I am one of those people that I repurposed this. I put all of my work meetings in this section. I got promoted about a year and a half ago, and like overnight had way more meetings and things that I needed to attend. And it was kind of hard to just juggle it all and keep up with things. And I have found that putting it here really helps me to not only stay organized, but it also helps me like start my week with a little bit less Sunday scaries, because I already have an idea of what's going on. I don't typically work on Saturdays and Sundays, so I usually reserve that space for either a journal prompt or a mantra from the personalized coaching platform, whatever is kind of speaking to me at the moment. And this week I decided to go with that mantra. But here are a list of ways that people have repurposed this here on the left-hand side, along with some examples. You can see here in the center that there are folks that do use this as intended as a meal planner or a meal tracker, but also lots of folks use it to write their daily affirmations here or happy moments or glimmers. Some people do a daily rose in this section or a daily rosebud thorn even. I also like that somebody is actually utilizing it for two things here. They're tracking their blood glucose range, and then over on the right-hand side, they're giving themselves some kind of prompts to check in with themselves. Here are some more examples. Somebody decided to use it as a mood tracker, but like in a unique way where they decided to say, this is the song that goes with my mood for today, and kind of kept it up that way. I also like that some people will put their to-do list over here. They'll use the to-do list section for something else. Sometimes they'll use it for that to-do list we talked about, and then they use this section for the actual to-dos and schedules and things like that. Again, no rules other than just make it work for you. And then, of course, I love this one thing I love about myself today because I think we all could use those little reminders. So I'll hop between these slides. Let us know how you're going to use this section. And again, if nothing comes to you immediately, it's also okay to just let it go for now. All right. Thank you all for spending some time here. We are now going to hop over to the section titled Mind Body Health Plan and Shopping List. So, for my Mind Body Health Plan, you all will remember in the beginning for my How I Want to Feel, I said that I wanted to create serenity by focusing on new routines. So, I am starting with my bedtime routine. I already established like what I want to do for before bed each day. I did that like early last year and it went really well. But the problem is I never established a specific order. And so I do things very chaotically. It should take me probably 30, maybe 45 minutes to do everything that I want to do before I hit the bed with my little head. But because I don't have a regular routine and order of what steps I do them in, sometimes it takes 30 minutes, sometimes it takes me an hour and a half. So I'm trying to get in a clear rhythm of what comes first in those order of operations. And that's what I'm doing for my Mind Body Health Plan this week. And then for the shopping list section, I do actually use it as a shopping list. If I don't have something to write down those things, a place to write those things down, I either will impulse buy because I'm afraid I'll forget to buy them, or I really will forget to buy them, and then I'll put myself in a bind. I also kind of keep a running to-do list underneath that shopping list. Those are things that I have no intention of doing those this week, or maybe even this month, or maybe even this season. But again, if I don't write it down, I will forget it exists. And so I kind of have to just have this running list. And so that is where I put them. Lots of folks are using these two sections kind of in conjunction with one another, or they're using one for this and the other for that, but somebody else is doing kind of the opposite. So I started kind of combining these in my setup. If you are going to establish an actual plan, okay, slides, getting a little ahead of ourselves now. If you are going to actually establish a plan for your mind body health, please make sure that you are carving out time for rest. Rest is arguably maybe the most important action you can take in a plan like this because everything else requires it. So make sure that you're carving out some time for rest and relaxation for yourself if you are making a plan. You could do any sort of bingo here. I know a lot of people like to do like a self-care bingo in this sections. You can use it as a shopping list as intended, but make it a little bit more fun, like the person with the doodles in the bottom right did. This is also a good place to put stickers or quotes, anything that's going to help ground you through the week. If you are an astrology person and you look at anything to do with planets or horoscopes or the moon phases and you want to track that here in these sections, go for it. If you're somebody that spends time in nature every week, maybe you want to do a nature reflection here, or if you do something more spiritual with your religion, if you want to write out scriptures or anything in this section, lots of folks use these areas for that as well. And then you have a whole list of examples here and also things that people have repurposed these for in the past. I know lots of folks have started using this for wardrobe planning now, and it makes their weeks flow a lot easier. But I like just having these little washi tape scraps here too. I think that that is so creative. So again, don't feel pressure to fill in every section of your journal. Things will present themselves to you in the way that they need to over time. Just do what feels right. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. Next week is another week and you get to try something new. So I'll put on another song for you and then we'll wrap up our time together. Well, if you can believe it, an hour has gone by in a blink of an eye like that. And once again, we are at the end of our time together. Lots of folks fill in the I am loving section at the end of the week, so you do not have to change that just because we are here together in this social. But if there is something that you are loving currently that you would like to share with all of us, I would love to see it. I currently am loving the possibility of wintry weather. I know that a lot of you, that is like a scary prospect because it sounds like you're going to get a lot of snow. But that's not going to happen to us here. And usually when we get snow, it is only here for a short period of time, so it stays nice and pretty. So I like the idea that even if we're not going to get it this go around, maybe we're getting into a season where we might get a little bit of that today. So, thank you all so much for being here with us. If you feel comfortable sharing your planner pages and what you got done today in Sonder Club, we would love to see them and possibly feature them in a future social. You never know, right? We try to like switch up our examples from time to time to kind of like showcase different ideas and things. You heard me talk about the personalized coaching platform multiple times today because I do use it in my weekly setup each week. And Katie will be sharing some links in the chat if you want to learn more about this platform that will let you do that. I will also share my link to my playlist. I actually just used my quote unquote master Sonder Social playlist today, which I think it has like almost 20 hours of songs on it. It's kind of bananas, but if you need a place to build your own playlist or you have something that you want to just like turn on and spend some really good time in your journal for a while, for a few hours with, I got you covered with that. So feel free to enjoy. But it was our pleasure to spend this time here with you today. We hope that you're feeling ready for the week and that you've got some great ideas. Until next time, we'll see you all in Sonder Club. Be good to each other, and we'll see you next time.